mode, as though defending themselves they have to apologize for it. No nation on the world has been more attacked and more maligned and more in the media and physically attacked than Israel. And we're going to prove it. I'm not going to just say this and go on. This next article is from Israel Today. It says at least a dozen people were killed and many more wounded early Monday morning when Israel, and again, these aren't, they're saying 9 were killed now, but this was right when it happened. Early Monday morning when Israeli soldiers sent to board 6 blockade-busting international aid ships. Their whole goal was to bust the blockade. It wasn't to get aid to Gaza. It was to create an international incident. They were forcing it. They were forcing Israel. They were putting them in a corner where they had no choice but to board this ship. And as soon as they boarded it, they were all attacked. It was all caught on camera. And I've even seen that footage on mainstream media, yet they act as though Israel had no right to board. And that it was Israel's fault that they were attacked immediately. How is it Israel's fault? The Muslim religion, and I've done studies on this before, is the most hypocritical bunch of liars I have ever seen on planet Earth. Lying is part and parcel of that religion. And I'm going to prove it today with quotes from their own unholy books. The aid ships set off from Turkey during the weekend, insisting that their cargo was desperately needed by residents of Gaza, despite the fact that Gaza is receiving many more times humanitarian aid each week via Israel. They don't need this desperately needed aid. That was a big lie from the pit of hell, too. Israel's sending them many more times this amount in humanitarian aid. Israel! They're giving their enemies aid, but it's not bullets and things like that, but it's humanitarian aid. But again, Israel gets no credit for that at all. No, they're demonized. The ships were also carrying many items Israel is trying to keep out of Gaza because they have been used in the past by Hamas to build rockets and bunkers. Well, that seems pretty reasonable, doesn't it? Why would you want to let material in that was going to be used to build bunkers or rockets or whatever? The flotilla organizers originally said they would not use violence if confronted by the Israeli Navy, but they're liars. And it's okay for them to be a liar according to their unholy books, and we'll get into that eventually. But an Israeli army spokesman said that the first soldier over the side of the main flotilla ship, after it ignored radio calls to halt, was immediately stabbed in the chest. The first soldier was immediately stabbed in the chest. The spokesman said that in addition to many activists wielding knives and metal bars, and again, you can see this right on the video, and this is a video I saw on mainstream news as well, at least 2 were armed with guns, forcing the Israeli troops to use deadly force to seize control of ships. Well, they may have got the guns from these IDF troops that they disabled. It's hard to say in a battle or a melee exactly where exactly they got the guns. The fact remains is they were beating them with rods, and they had slingshots and all kind of stuff right as they were rappelling onto the ship. In addition to the dozen or so fatalities among the activists, some 50 were wounded and transferred to Israeli hospitals for treatment. At least 10 Israeli soldiers were also wounded too seriously. This was not a peace mission. It was an act of terror, said IDF spokesman Colonel Avi Benenheim. In an address to the press later in the morning, Deputy Foreign Minister Danny Ayalon called the incident, quote, a premeditated and outrageous provocation. He said Israeli troops had found many weapons prepared beforehand for use against Israeli forces aboard the ships. It was an ambush for Israeli soldiers. Now, when I watched this all originally, it was so obvious that this is exactly what had happened. It wasn't even a question. You have the video to prove it. You know how the Muslims are. You could just assume that if they're going to do anything regarding Israel, that they're going to try to make themselves look like, oh, the poor Muslims, we just wanted to get this humanitarian aid in there. Our intentions were pure. Pure as the driven snow. Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm intentions. But they're liars. And they're taught that they should lie. in regarding to advancing Allah's agenda, particularly if it has anything to do with the Israelites. Demonize them any way they can demonize them, because they can't beat them in war. So what they're trying to do right now is get the whole world turned against Israel, and the Bible, pretty much predicts that's going to happen at one point or another. And this is further proof and further confirmation of the Bible. Going further, Aelion said the presence of weapons aboard the ships only further demonstrated that the flotilla's purpose was not humanitarian. Why would they have weapons aboard the ship if their purpose was humanitarian? For weeks leading up to the launch of the flotilla, Israel told its organizers in the Free Gaza movement that many tons of humanitarian aid were entering Gaza every day. It was telling them, we're giving them humanitarian aid, and that Israel would gladly add the permitted goods they had collected to the aid truck convoys. So they told them they would do that, but it wasn't good enough. But Aelion said Israel was repeatedly informed that the Free Gaza movement first and foremost intended to break the Israeli maritime blockade on Gaza and its Hamas rulers. So, in other words, they were going to usurp their illegal, ungodly selves on this blockade and break it. They were going to enforce their whims and ways onto Israel. And Israel said, no, you're not going to. You don't have any right. I mean, it was beyond reasonable what Israel was asking and the proposals they made. But it wasn't good enough for them. It wasn't good enough. I just showed Nunette and Taylor the video for when they were being warned prior, this Mavi Marana ship, prior to them coming, this very, very nice warning that the IDF was trying to give them, stating them what they already knew, and yet they still came through this. And I want you to hear it as well, because the Israelis are smart, because they're recording everything. And therefore, there was only... Granted, I know they're being demonized in the news, which is unbelievable, because all you have to do is watch the video footage to understand that this is an absolute farce and travesty of justice. But they've got everything recorded, and they're smart because, they can show you this, and it proves to you what's actually really going on, but it's all being ignored in the mainstream media. Let's just go ahead and listen to this right now, and we'll hear what they said to him prior to coming into port here.
An area of hostilities, which is under a...
Okay, sorry about that. I'm trying to get this so you hear the whole thing.
Mavi Marmara, you are approaching an area of hostilities, which is under a naval blockade. The Gaza area, coastal region, and Gaza harbor are closed to all maritime traffic. The Israeli government supports delivery of humanitarian supplies to the civilian population in the Gaza Strip and invites you to enter the Ashdod port.
How much nicer could they be?
The supplies, in accordance with the authorities' regulations, will be through the formal land crossings and under your observation, after which you can return to your home ports aboard the vessels on which you arrived.
Negative. Our destination is Gaza.
Okay, so that was, you're watching literally the bridge of the ship of the IDF, where they're telling them how much more nicer and above board could they be. I mean, these people knew that this was off limits. They knew, and Israel knew they were on their way, and yet they were still nice to them. It's unbelievable what has went on here, and yet, again, the mainstream media is just totally ignoring all this stuff. I haven't seen one person be able to debunk these videos. Not one. So going back to this article, it said that Again, they found many weapons on the ships afterward. And again, the other video actually photographs all the weapons they were... Once the battle was over, they got all the weapons together, and you see all of them on... This next article is from Israel Today. It says at least a dozen people were killed and many more wounded early Monday morning when Israel... And again, these aren't... they're saying 9 were killed now, but this was right when it happened. Early Monday morning when Israeli soldiers sent mode. As though defending themselves, they have to apologize for it. No nation on the world has been more attacked and more maligned and more in the media and physically attacked than Israel. And we're going to prove it. I'm not going to just say this and go on. To board 6 blockade-busting international aid ships. Their whole goal was to bust the blockade. It wasn't to get aid to Gaza. It was to create an international incident. They were forcing it. They were forcing Israel. They were putting them in a corner where they had no choice but to board this ship. And as soon as... And I've done studies on this before. Is the most hypocritical bunch of liars I have ever seen on planet Earth. Lying is part and parcel of that religion. And I'm going to prove it today with quotes from their own unholy... They boarded it. They were all attacked. It was all caught on camera. And I've even seen that footage on mainstream media, yet they act as though Israel had no right to board. And that it was Israel's fault that they were attacked immediately. How is it Israel's fault? The Muslim religion